Thanks for tuning into the Movie Pope. Today we are taking a look at the trailer for Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, which premieres in October. So that's next month. Oh, geez. I really have lost track of time, Lee. But the reason why I want to take a look at this trailer is because we're actually not too far off from from award season, and even though award season starts roughly around January, Lee.
Yeah.
Roughly around that time. They've already got a list of contenders out. Well, a preliminary list of contenders out there already. And here at the podcast, because we discuss all things movie related, we do have our ear to the ground when it comes to what's hot and what's not. When it comes to Oscar contenders. Now, obviously, over the past few seasons, when we have looked at movies that have been Oscar contenders, for the most part, they haven't really been. What's the best word to describe them, Lee?
It's been a mixed bag of movies that have generally been strong and other ones that have been almost non-watchable.
Yeah, I go back to last year, or I say last year, but earlier this year, actually, where we looked at movies like Conclave, for instance, which we agreed was a banger of a hit, and we were surprised that it didn't get more considerations from the Academy. Whereas a movie like Emilia Perez, where we called it out and said this movie was made intentionally for the purpose of just getting nominated. It was checking all the boxes. It got a few considerations and a lot of noise. So today we're looking at the trailer for the biopic for Bruce Springsteen, which chronicles him as a young musician back in 1982, growing up right across from your old stomping ground, Lee, in good old New Jersey. And it stars Jeremy Allen White of the Bear
I'm from
fame.
New York, so we don't talk about New Jersey and New York.
Well, I'm from North Carolina, and I consider the two of you the same. So, but starring Jeremy Allen White of the Bear fame as the famous rocker Bruce Springsteen. So, Lee, as we're watching the movie, I just want you to pay attention to a few elements and just see if there's anything that stands out to you that just says, "Huh, I could sort of see how how this movie could sort of like get in." I mean, apart from the fact that it's a biopic, and biopics for the most part, we don't discuss this much in detail, but biopics, sometimes are a shoo-in for getting nominated for the awards.
It does feel like that. It just, before we get into this, right? I don't really listen to Bruce Springsteen, right? I have no, I would say, affiliations, or I have nothing that's going to slight me towards, I'm going to like this because I like Bruce Springsteen songs. I could probably only name a handful if you put a gun to my head, and that's being pretty lenient with that. So I'm kind of going into this with a very open mind, not knowing much about his music, and not much about his life. So,
to be fair, you don't know anything about Bob Dylan either, and we're scheduled to review. We're scheduled to review A Complete Unknown before the year's out. I mean, this is coming from someone who only knows Linkin Park and only Linkin Park, and has quite a lot of opinions about Linkin Park and the new lineup. But that's a discussion for a later date. So let's take a look at Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Yeah, and I know a lot about anime too, Lee. All right, let's start.
Hey, wait a minute. We're gonna get to that one later.
It's a 305 V8.
Never owned a new car before.
It's awfully fitting for a handsome devil rock star. I do know who you are.
Well, that makes one of us.
Hey, boss, can you do a mic check?
I know that's his nickname.
Yep.
Well, there's something I knew about it.
Looks about right.
Don't need to be perfect. I want it to feel like I'm in the room by myself.
Yeah.
Let's try one.
It is interesting
Here's
to
what
see
I want you to understand.
Jeremy Allen
This is
White
not
there,
about
because
either one of
I
us.
obviously think about him from
This is
the
not
Bear
about the charts.
and everything.
This is about Bruce Springsteen. And these are the songs that he wants to work on right now.
I saw her standing on the front lawn,
Look at how big are you into Bruce Springsteen?
I know a little bit more than you. That's for
Okay.
sure.
Tell a little story.
Because
When
I would
Bruce was little, he had a hole
love
in
to
the
know
floor
if
of his
he
bedroom.
even looks remotely close to how Bruce Springsteen looks.
The floor that's supposed to be solid, that you're supposed to be able to stand on. Bruce, he didn't have that. Bruce is a repairman. And what he's doing with this album is he's repairing that hole in his floor. He's repairing that hole in himself.
Did he have a bad relationship with his parents or his father?
And once he's
What are we
done
going
that, he's going to repair the entire world.
Trying to find something real in all the noise.
You always do.
I know this song. This is one I know. I don't know. The trailer's not really giving me a lot to go off of on this. I mean, it seems like obviously it's, we're getting a story about him in his early years, I guess. And judging from the title, I guess, I don't know. Do you know where Bruce Springsteen, where did he grow up? Do you know?
Well, he grew up in New Jersey, for one.
Oh, you did say that at the beginning. Sorry, I forgot. You didn't mention that. So I don't know. I mean, the trailer is not really doing it a whole lot of justice for what you're trying to tell with the story. And I think kind of my issue with a lot of these biopics, right, is it almost always follows kind of a similar pattern, right? I know we watched, what was the one with the Monkey Man, right? What was that one? That was what was the biopic about?
Which one?
The one with the dude, they make him a monkey, right? He's just a monkey in the film for some reason.
Oh, is that one with Robbie Williams?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I don't know the name of the I don't know the name of the
Better
movie.
Man.
Yeah.
Better Man, right? So I mean, like, when they create something like that, it's weird and it's jarring. It did try to at least do something different, and I'm not saying that that's a good or a bad thing, because I think making Robbie Williams a primate was kind of an odd choice to do. But it's like, okay, cool, like that's a biopic about Robbie Williams where he was a monkey, right? It's something that, at least in my brain, I was like, okay, that sticks out, right? For this, it's like, what are you going for, right? Like, if you don't know anything about Bruce Springsteen, is this going to bring you in? Like, looking at the trailer, like, I didn't really glean anything from it. Did he have a bad childhood? I saw him, shadow boxing with his dad. I see him dancing with his mom. So are we going to, did they have a good relationship? Is this something I care about? I mean, it just doesn't really spark any interest. And with a lot of these films, they have this very, I would say, kind of format, right? It's, he's this, young budding star, and he gets found, and he goes through a whole lot of turmoil in his career, and then he kind of, finds his way at the end, right? That's always kind of how these films work. So it's like, for Bruce Springsteen, what are you doing that's going to separate it or make me care about it, especially if I don't know anything about him, right? Because I think that's who your audience is, right? You're going to automatically get the Bruce Springsteen crowd to come in on it, assuming that you're as faithful as you can be to his life, right? And that kind of made me question, I don't really, know how Bruce Springsteen looks. I don't know how close he's going to resemble. I don't know how close he's going to resemble him, but I have to wonder if this is going to get a whole lot of people to pay attention to it.
Well, I mean, what you also want to keep in mind too is the fact that a lot of these biopics and movies about movie stars or musicians. I mean, they're catering to the to those who've been fans for years and years, but they also want to introduce them to to a younger generation, a younger audience.
Absolutely.
May not have had the experience of knowing or experiencing who these artists are.
Yes. Yeah. 100% agree. And I would love to, like I said, I think that's fantastic because it is important for us to get the voice out. My concern is I watched the trailer, I don't know how, like, if I don't care about him, why am I going to be interested in it, right? Nothing in the trailer really gave me that, right? At least with something like Elvis, right? I think about Austin Butler, and like he really had Presley is such an iconic voice. You really hear that in Austin Butler's performance, right? I think that's one where it's like, hey, he really did a great job playing a very iconic role, right? For Bruce Springsteen, thank you for the visuals, for bringing that up. I mean, it's not going to be a one-on-one, right? I wouldn't want to find a Bruce Springsteen clone to do it. But like I said, they're not exactly like.
But there's such a fine line between an impersonator and an actor,
Yes.
So I mean, obviously there isn't that much of a similarity between the two, but you can still see where the youthful spirit between these two. Well, another thing that I would mention as well, because because this particular movie isn't it isn't starting from the very beginning where he's a guy trying to make a name for himself, but he's also not at that point where he becomes the boss of the East Street Band and he's a household name. He's kind of in that middle period. I guess you could say, he's in year 2. He's not quite new, but he's not quite established either, because according to Wikipedia, it says that this movie is going to chronicle the making of his 1982 album, Nebraska, when he was a young musician on the cusp of global superstardom. So, and I'll say this, I do appreciate the fact that they're not focusing on his entire life, because we have seen movies where they've tried to take, a huge overarching story and try to tell it, and then it collapses under the weight. I mean, my God, the big one that comes to mind is Napoleon, right?
Yeah.
So by taking this particular segment of Springsteen's life and telling a story, in this movie, it kind of makes it, a little bit more digestible, but it also kind of helps us appreciate where he was coming from and where he's going, because, us in 2025, we have the hindsight of knowing that he's going to become, this huge star who's going to play in stadiums and arenas and just become a name, that everybody just knows. Whereas a younger generation, they'll probably have no idea, because they're more used to just stuff that they see on TikTok or something like that. So it's kind of one of those things where they kind of have to walk a tightrope, because on the one hand, you don't want to alienate people who have loved Springsteen for years and years and have an intimate connection with him in terms of his music, because any song that you listen to, depending on where you are in life, is going to have a particular significant meaning because it's gotten you through those times. But then you've got to balance it out with the younger audience, because obviously once the older audience dies away, if you don't have, a new audience to learn and appreciate what they're doing, then that music dies away, So it's a pretty fine line where you don't want to alienate the fans, but you also don't want to have the younger generation kind of tune out and just brush it aside and say, well, I don't really see the point in it,
That's pretty profound. I'll give you that. That was pretty profound. I just hope that the boss has an interesting enough life that it's going to get the non-people that follow Bruce Springsteen to go out and go see it.
Well, like I said, they're taking just a particular segment. So,
yes.
So I mean, when we watch these movies that are Oscar contenders, I mean, they're focusing on a period of someone's life where there is a lot of angst, a lot of drama, a lot of uncertainty, and we try to break down, like, what is the struggle and why is the struggle so appealing, right? Like the Holdovers, for instance, when we did a review of that, I mean, on the surface level, it would seem like there's really nothing significant about it. But as we, went deeper and deeper into the movie, we come to see that there is actually a lot of drama going on. And by the time we finish, watching that movie, we come to appreciate what exactly is happening and how these characters interact and how they sort of resolve or don't resolve the situation, right? So it would be kind of interesting to see just how audiences. I'm more curious to see just how audiences will embrace it. Really.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think the older audiences are going to be tuned off by it, because I mean, if you were vibing with Bruce Springsteen from like the late 70s, early 80s, at this point, I mean, anything that involves Bruce Springsteen, you're in on it, right?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Whereas,
we'll see.
yeah, whereas you and I mean, well, in your case, you're kind of ambivalent towards it. Me, I would probably be sort of curious, but I'm curious in the sense, as to what is it about this movie? What can audiences glean from the movie that's going to justify it being, one of the heavy hitters for this year's awards?
Mhm.
But what do you think? Do you see anything that kind of makes you think, oh, I can sort of see how it might be a shoe-in, or it might get consideration from?
I think just because it's a biopic, I feel like it kind of gets put on this awkward pedestal, right? It just always seems to be the case. We've seen a lot of these biopics pop up. It feels like almost once a year, right? I think Elvis was 2022. So, I mean, that was just a few years ago. And then last year, we had just talked about the other one that came out. So, I mean, it feels like they pop out frequently. So it'll be, like I said, I'll be interested to see I'd be interested just to kind of maybe get a little bit more about Bruce Springsteen, because I know how impactful he is to the music landscape, right? I don't think, even if you're not familiar with him, about him, right? And I think his name has definitely transcended, anyone's interest in it. I just, like I said, looking at the trailer, it doesn't really get me as like, hey, cool, what's the hook that's going to get me invested in it if I'm not a fan of Bruce Springsteen?
Now, just out of curiosity,
gave it to me.
Now, just out of curiosity, because your family is from, right across the river from Jersey. Have any of your family members been fans of Springsteen, or did they know of Springsteen or listen?
My uncle loves Springsteen, right? I don't know for other family members, but I know my uncle absolutely knows Bruce Springsteen, huge fan of his. So, I mean, I think he's obviously that part of the target audience is going to be him. I would be curious, how much he feels about, how they're going to kind of depict them and what they're going to focus on. And I think most importantly, right, it's going to be how well does Jeremy Allen White pull off Bruce Springsteen, because I think that's going to play a huge impact.
Well, I was going to say that'd be really, really interesting, just to ask him, just get his take on that too.
Yeah.
But one last thing I will say too is that, because keep in mind it is a period piece as well. It's set in 1982, and usually period pieces, for the most part, they get a little bit more consideration, because even if the story isn't great, even if the acting is subpar, even if the writing and directing leaves much to be wanting, I mean, just the way that they recreate, New Jersey in 1982 is going to get a lot of people, their ears perk up, because they're like, oh, I wonder how they're going to visually style this and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious how we're going to make New Jersey look like less than a shithole in 1982.
Well, considering that it's New Jersey.
Sorry, New
anyway.
Jersey. No, I'm sorry. You just have kind of that rap, right? I apologize.
Well, I was gonna say
it's New Jersey. But
I
was gonna
say because it is New Jersey, though, it probably looks the same now as it did 40 something years ago.
Right. Every New Jersey just downvoted the video. Good job, Luca.
I mean, hey, I'm from North Carolina. I mean, if anything, they're going after you, Mr. Long Islander. But let us know down in the comments below what your thoughts are. Do you believe that Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere might be a serious contender? And could Jeremy Allen White win the Best Actor award? Also, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and if you're from New Jersey, we say this in good fun, and we don't really dislike you guys. We encourage you to check us out in spite of what the movie Pope says. And as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one. Yeah, he wasn't really sorry.
Oh, what?